What's up everybody, it's me, Coach Mills, and in this video we're going to be going over every Valorant character's ultimate and ranking them best and worst in the current meta. Now if these agents have ultimates that rank in the S tier, they're among the most powerful that force players to play entirely around them and oftentimes will outright win you rounds. And if they're all the way down in the D tier, these are ultimates that are more or less forgettable. Maybe they're extensions of abilities in general on the same power level, or they have a high failure rate. So we're gonna break it all down, but you're definitely gonna wanna check out SkillCapped for update guides over many of the characters on this list. If you really wanna get better and you wanna learn from top tier pros, SkillCapped analyzes those pros on these characters, shows you exactly how to master abilities and decision making so that every single round you're making the right decisions and you're dominating your game. So if you really want to climb, then look no further because we offer a money back guarantee. So if you don't climb, you don't pay. What are you waiting for? Check it out right now in the links down below. Now the first character's ultimate we got to talk about is Harbor's ultimate, and I think specifically while this ultimate can be pretty powerful at forcing people to relocate, oftentimes it forces a fight. It doesn't necessarily set up an advantaged fight for you. Something that I think that's really important about this ultimate is there's a lot of abilities that can be used to just take a fight more aggressively, and it makes it so you can oftentimes just lose. It's not like a I win or a great engagement tool. I think really the best case scenario is using this in a team-oriented setting, but there are other ultimates that force movement a lot better. Like think something like Lockdown that gets more guaranteed value, forces people out of a space entirely rather than just forcing them to move from it. And even though Harbor's ultimate has been buffed a couple of times in the past, I don't think it's quite up to snuff compared to many of the other ultimates in this game. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. Still doesn't have a crazy high failure rate, so you're going to get some value with it at the very least. I'm going to put it in the C tier respectively. Next up, we do got to talk about Chamber's Op ultimate. I really do think that there's a lot to love about this ultimate. It's, for one, free money. Operators cost a lot of money, and you're going to be able to get one for free. It's going to help you on that eco round, and it's a little bit faster firing than an operator. So overall, really, this ultimate is, at worst case, like a really nice eco boost, but at best case, it could take over an entire round. I do think that it's still important to understand that it requires mechanical skill to pull off. It's not going to be free value, and it's better in some situations. You know, on defense, I think you're going to be able to get a little bit more value with it, and there's some awkward situations for it for sure, but it's pretty strong and pretty solid. I'm kind of juggling between A and B tier with this ultimate. I think because the floor is high enough, I'm actually going to put it in A tier. It's a really, really solid ultimate. Going to get you some pretty free value. Might not warp an entire round around it, but it could. And there's a lot to like about it, so I'm putting it in A. The next character we got to talk about is ISO, and I'm actually going to put ISO's ultimate in the B tier, especially after his most recent changes. Being able to shield himself before he pops an ultimate is going to give him a really advantaged gunfight. The fact that you can walk into that fight with 2 barricades, have shields so that you can take a hit, and at the same time you can ult simultaneous to your team making a play, or if you snag someone, your team can make a play off of it. It really is pretty powerful. Now, I'm not going to say that it's always going to go great for you, right? You could still lose the gunfight. It's not guaranteed value, and that's one of the criteria that I have for putting ultimates in the higher tier, where it forces actions from enemies in a way that is really hard to interact with or counter. And while this is super strong, I'm not going to put it into the upper echelons of ultimates, even if in the right hands, it can be very, very powerful. I think it's a really strong ultimate, and those of you that are already good at ISO are going to be able to feast even better now with this ultimate. So yeah, it definitely is that strong, but I'm not gonna put it quite to the higher tiers yet. Still really, really powerful ultimate overall. Now next up, we do got to talk about Phoenix, and Phoenix is one that is on paper maybe not as powerful as some other ultimates, but there's a really important factor that I think puts it over the edge and puts it to one of the best ultimates in the game, and it's the fact that it's cheap. It's really fast to get these Phoenix ultimates. You're going to be able to get a couple of kills, grab some orbs, and boom, you got that ultimate. And Phoenix being able to both gather information, be an entry, and has a really high ceiling with this ultimate, with really not a crazy low floor if you use it like half decently. You're not using it too close to enemy space or whatever. And you get it so much, it almost feels like an ability that's way more powerful. So you combine all that together, I'm putting it in the S tier. Now, if we kind of put every ultimate on the same playing field with ult points, if like ult points, we took that out of the debate, then it would not be quite S tier. But you have to consider how often this ultimate is going to be used and how impactful it's going to be throughout the many more times. I mean, like, for one Phoenix Soul, you're going to be able to not even get any other ult, really. So, I mean, for one other ultimate that's more expensive, you might be already on your second Phoenix Soul, which is really, really important to point out. The next up, we do got to talk about Kayo, and his ultimate is fan-freaking-tastic. It's one of the best parts about this character. Being able to do a joint rush with his ultimate is incredibly powerful, turning off all sorts of utility, forcing enemies out of location, shutting down a lot of pieces of utility from a lot of sentinels, and just being really hard to interact with. And of course, if you get downed, you can get rezzed up. That's like the least impactful part of this ultimate, I would say, but still, it's a fantastic ultimate, fantastic enabler, really great for rushes. I think a lot of the things that I don't like about the Harbor ultimate, I love about. And yeah, I'm putting him in the S tier. It's just one of the best team rush ultimates in the game by far, so I'm definitely putting it up here. The next up, we do got to talk about Skye, and Skye is great. I mean, the ultimate's fantastic. It's good in a lot of situations too, whether you're behind, whether you're ahead. It's good in 1v1 situations. It's good in team-oriented situations. I would say because of its flexibility, it's a little bit better than Killjoy's lockdown in some scenarios. It doesn't quite have as powerful as a proactive force. I think using it into teams that are really defensively secured, teams can like work together to clear them a little bit easier, and you know, it's not going to get as much easy value, but it's more flexible. So it's still a very powerful ultimate. I'm actually going to put it in the top of A tier. I think it's just that strong, really, really strong, but it definitely has I would say a lower floor, and it's easier to counteract. Next up, we do got to talk about Viper. Viper's ultimate is phenomenal. There's so much to like about Viper's ultimate. You basically just claim space and keep it. You just force this space closed. You get to hold it down. You ever get the spike down, it's really, really strong. It's sometimes good to use pre-round, force enemies to rotate where you want them to, and you could even use it offensively to take space on a site and plant down. It's great in a clutch too. Like, there's just so many good aspects about this ultimate that I think make it really, really strong. The only problem I would say is in situations where you use it, sometimes it's hard for your teammates to play around it with you, and other enemies can use it to like basically either rotate off or gather information about where you are. And you know, it's good, but you need to know how to use it properly. I would still say it's a very, very powerful ultimate, and I'm putting it up in the A tier, but I don't know if it's above. I think maybe it's top of A tier. It's really, really strong in the right situations. It's just not always going to be that powerful. Next up, we do got to talk about Neuro Theft from Cypher, and giving double pings on information make this ultimate way more competitive than it used to be. It's still not fantastic. People can still move and change up that info. Knowing where they are isn't enough to make it like over the top. I think it's still one of the weaker parts of Cypher's kit. Even if it's pretty good, I would actually say that there is a failure rate, but it's less than it used to be when it only pinged once. But I'm really going to put it around the C tier. It gets value, but it's just not necessarily going to win you around or force opponents' actions in the way you want them to. And yeah, I mean, I like the ultimate, and it's a great ultimate, but it's not like it's necessarily round changing just by itself. Putting it in the C tier for sure. Next on the list is Neon. Neon, a character that just recently got some massive buffs, but let's talk about her ultimate. Specifically, there are some good parts about this ultimate and bad. I think the bad is that there's a failure rate, right? You pop the ultimate, you do nothing, you die. It sucks. That's the best way I could describe it. But the great part about this ultimate is that you can be very accurate even while jumping and sliding and doing all that fancy stuff. In addition to that, it's going to reset your sprint meter, and you could use it on eco. So for a lot of the reasons I like Chamber's ultimate, I like Neon's ultimate. I don't think it's as powerful or versatile as Chamber's ultimate, but there are going to be some situations where it's amazing and you do have a really high pop-off potential. It really does suck to fling around a corner and get headshot, but there are some high potentials for this ultimate. I would actually put it in the B tier overall. I think it's pretty strong and does help you on those eco rounds to basically help you level up that economy. And you can kind of cheat on some rounds where you know, buy a little bit more than maybe you should buy, but your ultimate's going to catch you back up in economy. The next character that we got to talk about is Deadlock, and Deadlock's ultimate is super strong in a 1v1 situation. Yes, you have to aim it and hit it, but it can be phenomenal in a situation where no one can save the person that's trapped, which is really, really great. There are not always going to be great situations to use it in, though. So even though it is strong, it is very linear. It's, you know, a lot of the time it's gonna do nothing, or it's just gonna force opponents to play a bit more aggressive. It's not necessarily gonna create the type of fights that you want. I think this one's a little bit hard to place though. I'm kind of stuck between B and C. Ironic, right? But specifically, I do think that I would probably put Deadlocks in high C. This might be blasphemy, but I do think that this ultimate is an ultimate that has too high of a failure rate, and it's too specific in the application of it. So putting it in the C tier. Still strong in a 1v1, still strong in any 1v1 situation, basically. Even 2v1 situations you can be really good in, but any more than that, and it's a little dicey. Next on the list is Sage Resurrect, and this ultimate, I think, is still one of the best ultimates in the game. I think it's one of the reasons that Sage actually has a positive win rate on most ranks of play in general. It's really solid. It's so flexible. You can use it in so many different situations, whether you're saving economy, whether you're resurrecting to try to take a point, whether you're resurrecting to help, you know, defend a point. I mean, there's just so many different situations where it's good. It's almost always good to have +1 person. And as long as you use this half reasonably, you're not popping this and then doing it when enemies could be nearby. And if you do that, you could do it strategically. I just think its floor is so high, and its ceiling can be literally, I win the round. I'm definitely putting it in the S tier. Very, very strong ultimate. Overall, I like it a lot. Now we do got to talk about Raze, and basically for everyone that's not Sub-Rosa, I think Raze's ultimate is deserving of a pretty high placement because it's a great entry tool. It can get you the kills you need. It can really help you open up a point. Yes, you could still die midway through. Yes, there's a failure rate where you get people low and they kill you. So it's bad for those reasons, but I think it's good because it can really open up a fight, get you that first kill. It's really strong in that way, and it can create momentum as well. I think it's pretty similar to the strength of Neon's ultimate. The only thing I would put it a little bit weaker than Neon is because Neon can be used on an eco round. You're just not buying anything, you're just buying armor. And Showstopper, you're gonna really want to use that still with a kit. Even if it's a cheap kit, you're still gonna want to have a kit, especially armor for sure. I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Still think it's powerful. It's just not quite up to the level of some of these other ultimates. Now, Fades is one that can be a little tricky because you do get info with this one, which is really, really cool. Gathering info is fantastic. Being able to know where a lot of people are is really, really good at getting those lines in the sand. But it's just pure info, and it kind of falls into some of the similar categories of Harbor and Cypher. I think it has a little bit more than these ultimates, though. It gets you a little bit more. You can combine it with your Prowler, which is nice. It's a bit better in team rushes, which is nice. So those are two aspects that might push it a little bit above, but I don't think it's far. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. Maybe that's not entirely fair, but pure information ultimates are not often going to be great enough to compete compared to many of these other ultimates that provide a bit more than information. They can literally just win you the round by themselves. Information is great, but there's a lot of abilities that give information. And yes, from a strategic perspective, I know some of these ultimates are going to be far better in like pro play and things like that. I'm trying to do it based on like the average. I'm not necessarily just basing it, but only on pure pro play. I know the information is great, rotations and things like that. But yeah, from this perspective, I could maybe see the argument that it's B. And the more I think about it, I'm actually going to put it at the bottom of B, because I do think it's a fair bit better than these two ultimates, but it's not much better. I'm just putting it bottom of B. Next up, we do got to talk about Yoru, and Yoru's ultimate is okay, I would say. There are some nice pros. You can grab the spike. You could set up a really nice play because you're invisible. And yeah, you could set up like a cool play with his kit. It works really well with his kit overall. Still think there's a failure rate. Still think there's a way to not get value with the ultimate. It's hard to place this ultimate once again. I honestly don't think it's a D tier ultimate because it's not that low. There's other versatile uses for it, but I don't think it's any side higher than a C. This might be blasphemy for many of y'all, and I understand that it flows really well to his kit, but you're still relying on the Yoru to pop off, right? You're not just getting value for free. And as you'll see when we talk about Resurrect, like what does that require of you? It doesn't require anything of you besides not rezzing in the middle of the open. And I understand that Phoenix Ultimate does require a little bit from you, but it's gonna get you value whether you get a kill or not. You run out, at least you get information, but sometimes you get to get information, kill somebody, and, you know, generate value. Plus, you get it so often. I just have to put it in this high ranking, and I'm going to put this in a low ranking. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Next up, we're going to talk about Sova. Sova is a great ult, actually. I'm actually going to put this way higher than many of you might expect, and there's a lot of reasons for this. I think the first one is it works really well with this kit, and you can get a lot of kills just by combining your dart with your ultimate, which is really, really great. It's also really good at challenging lanes and rush pushes. You could even not be that close to the objective. You could be rotating from mid or whatever the case may be and still help your teammates on C or A or B or whatever you're doing. You could still help them from across the map, which is really, really cool. In addition to that, it's a great post-plant tool. And yeah, I mean, you combine all those things together and it can get kills just in the neutral. It's great for specific value. And it's really good at interrupting enemy plays and team plays. I think you combine all those things together, and I want to put it in the A tier because of just how versatile it is and just because of how powerful it is. It's been one of the best ultimates for a long time, and I'm definitely going to put it in this tier. Astra's Wall. Now, this one's really hard. Astra's ultimate is really hard to place, mainly because I think, personally, I really think this ultimate has like the highest potential. It has the highest potential upside. It's a ridiculously powerful ultimate. Being able to cut off sound and damage is just so freaking strong. It's insanely strong, but it requires really smart use and really great coordination. Two things that I think are hard. Like in the right hands and like a pro team or a high level player's hands, this could be like an S tier amazing ultimate, but on average, I think it lacks a bit, right? Oftentimes, enemies will just ape through it, use a whole bunch of abilities people won't be holding like they should, and you'll just die. So there's ways to counter it. I think it has the potential to be all the way here. I'm gonna actually hedge and put it here. Maybe I should put it down here, but its floor is really potentially low with this not being used in the right hands, even if I think objectively it's one of the best ultimates in the entire game, and I would put it higher. Breach is great. It's a great ultimate. Really strong. If you have information about where enemies are, it's basically wraps. If you don't have information, at the very least, you can clear information safely. So freaking strong. I'd have to put this in A. I kind of want to put it higher than... I think I'm going to put it here. It's just such a damn strong ultimate. Maybe I even put it above that. I'm going to put it at the top of A. Really, really great ultimate. Great for post-plant. Great for taking. Great for isolation fights. It's good in a lot of situations. There's really not a bad situation for it. It's just that good. It's very, very solid, so I'm putting it in the A tier. Brimstone. Brimstone's similar to Sova in its versatility. I don't think it's as flexible offensively, right? And that's really important where, you know, you could definitely ult hookah or guess in a position where enemies are, gather some information. Doesn't synergize as well with his own kit, right? Not like Sova can. It can't interact with other lanes as well, but it's really great for post-plant still. So there's good parts about it. You can still use it aggressively if you're like ulting freaking hookah or some commonly held angle or place. But I just don't think it's as reliable or strong as Hunter's Fury. I'm going to put it at the top of B. I do think it's a bit better for post-plant than Hunter's Fury at the cost of all that offensive flexibility. Jett Knives. I was just talking about Jett Knives with a buddy, talking about how far this character has changed since the origin of Knives, where you could right-click, get another knife back. But still, even all this time later, still one of the best ultimates in the game. It works so well with Jett. It's great for eco. Just very, very powerful, efficient, allows you to save money, can allow you to pop off and kill people so easily, and it's just a great way to win an eco round. You pop off with knives when none of your team has weapons. You get your team a couple of weapons. You keep the momentum going. It's just that good. Yes, it has a failure rate, but a lot of these abilities do have failure rates, and I think it's just a very strong, flexible variant of it. Now, I'm actually going to put it lower. This one, not everyone might agree with me here, but I'm putting it lower than Chambers because I think Chambers has a higher potential impact at an easier level, like an easier rate. It's easier to hit an op shot than it is to pop off and kill people with knives most of the time, especially if you set up the right situations for it. I still think Jett Knives is really strong. I'm actually going to put Jett Knives right around, they're about the same as Brimstone, I would say. Really, really strong, really solid. Definitely a better deployable than Neon's ultimate for sure. But But yeah, I don't necessarily think it's as powerful as a lot of these ultimates that give more consistent value and can win you the games a lot easier. And speaking of consistent value, Killjoy. And I think Killjoy's ultimate is probably just the best. Yes, it's expensive, I understand that, but you get to force people straight up out of positions. And this is where you start to see the stark divide when we talk about Harbor's ultimate, when we talk about Cypher's ultimate, and you see these ultimates that get information or force people out of positions, and you compare it to an ultimate like this that literally forces people out of an entire space. They cannot be there. You have a fact, you know for a fact they're not there. That is so powerful, and people don't seem to understand just how impactful that is. It's one of the most impactful things you can do in the game. It's one of the reasons why this ultimate has become one of the most expensive ultimates, because it's just that strong. In pro play, in regular play, ranked play, pub play, doesn't matter what it is so goddamn strong. I think it's personally the strongest ultimate in the game. And yeah, it's just so damn strong. You could make the argument that maybe it doesn't deserve this #1 spot because it's so expensive, but I would still argue that it does, because even at that price, it's worth every damn point you spend on it. Omen's ultimate is kind of similar to Yoru's, where you're getting a little bit. You could teleport somewhere aggressively, but people are gonna find you out. You can teleport to the other side of the map, which is pretty much mainly what you're going to get the value out of it for, which is not much different than your ultimates. I think that it's kind of on that tier. It's fine. Like, that's cool. You get to rotate and plant. That's pretty much the value you're going to get from it. Not going to do much more than that. I'm actually going to put Omens on one of the lower parts of this kit, and I think while it works well with this character, it's not a very powerful ultimate. I don't think anyone can argue that it's among the same power level as some of these ultimates in the higher tiers of play. Gekko's Thresh, a monster on the loose. It's interesting because, yeah, you could technically get multiple people, but you're really gonna get one person. You are vulnerable when you use it. It's good in an isolation, but outside of that, it's not gonna be that great. I do think it's like a better version of Deadlock's ultimate a good amount of the time, or maybe about the same. It's actually kind of hard. I think it's actually kind of close between power level. I don't know if I want to put it below or above Deadlock. That's a little close. You do get information with it, though, even if you don't hit anybody with it. I think I'm going to put it slightly above. I think I'm actually going to put it at the bottom of B tier, I believe, and maybe I do that instead. I think this is a little bit more fair. I might be completely missing the mark here, though. Let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, I think it's about that. Now, Reyna just got a buff. She just got a buff and nerf to her main kit, but the big buff she got to her ultimate is now it doesn't cancel. Your ultimate doesn't cancel. You're not on a timer to use it, which means you could pop it, be more passive. You don't have to be afraid as much to like pop it and go pursue kills. You could even pop it at the beginning of the round and be more flexible with how you use it and things like that, and the pace of play that you play at. It's strong. It's cool. It helps you make, you know, worse weapons better, and it helps you be a little bit more consistent in gunfights and consistently have more gunfights and gives you more options in a gunfight. Does have a high failure rate, though, and it's not like it's a great eco use, right? Like, not like Jett's knives or these, right? It's just an ultimate that you just kind of have to use, and you just have to use and pray. And I think, you know, it's still kind of a D tier ultimate. It's strong, though. It gives you a clutch potential, so it's hard. It's hard to place. I think it's actually C. And understand this. I understand it has a high ceiling, but I do rank ultimates on this list a lot based on their failure rate. Like, you are gonna personally remember all of the times you popped up with Reyna ultimate, be like, oh, this ultimate's so goddamn good, it's the best, right? But how many times have you popped Reyna's ultimate and died instantly? Just wasted that. It happens so much. You probably blanked it out of your memory, even if it happens half the time, you probably don't even remember. And it does happen all the time. There's a huge floor with this ultimate, and you're just not going to have that floor with a lot of these other higher power ultimates if you use them even reasonably well. The guaranteed value factor is so low with this ultimate. I'm going to put it higher, though. I'm actually going to put it there. I'm going to put it right there. I think this is fair. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Next up, last up, final up, we have Clove. And Clove did get a slight change to this ultimate. Just a really minor changes that didn't really affect it as of this recent patch. But even before the changes and in spite of the changes, really Clove it's a great ultimate. It's a really, really good ultimate. The fact that they have the ability to fight again, take a fight that they lost, help their team re-engage even if they died, still smoke if they lurked and died. You get a second chance at life. Not as strong as something like a Resurrect, not as strong. You still have to play pretty aggressive, offensive, but still good value, just good value. And I would almost compare it similar to something on the level of Jett knives. I think I'm actually gonna put it a little bit weaker than Jett knives. This one might be a hot take. I know you get a second life, right? But Jett knives makes your one life so much more valuable that wouldn't be valuable because you'd be rocking a pistols and being super broke. And yeah, I mean, Clove's ultimate can be really good. It's expensive, and yeah, overall, I think I would put it among the same category. Could deserve a bit higher up in the A, but you let me know down below if you agree or disagree with my list here. Yeah, but that's everything I got for you. And if you want to climb and you want to have in-depth guides over many of the characters on this list, definitely check out SkillCapped right here.